The following review may contain spoilers. The action scenes are fairly good. They're clearly inspired by Jackie Chan. The camera mostly stays wide and we get full body shots of the actors. I remember Jackie Chan once saying that the camera has to be wide because the fight scenes are like a dance. And when you're watching dance, of course you want to see the full body in movement. There's even a moment where the lead actor fakes a punch at a guy who flinches and then humorously gets slapped instead. This clearly felt like a Jackie Chan moment. The production value is excellent despite the film's microscopic $2 million budget. There are several examples that support this. First, the special effects involving the hero's lightning powers look pretty good. They never come off as looking cheap or fake. Second, the cinematography is well done. There's actually one really beautiful shot of two young boys training in martial arts inside a rundown factory or something that has holes in its roof, creating a cool-looking lighting effect. And finally, all the acting is pretty good. With American micro-budget movies, sometimes the acting level tends to go down in quality. I'm thinking of movies like Paranormal Activity. But the level of acting here is professional throughout. So it seems like the actors did their jobs, the action is fairly good, and all the technical aspects of the film are solid, but unfortunately they have a god-awful script. Basically my entire bad section is about the script. Quite honestly, it feels like this movie was shot without a script. It genuinely feels like they were making up one scene after another as they went along. If somebody had told me this as a lie, that they shot this film without a script, I would have probably believed them because it's exactly what this movie felt like. One element of the film that clearly shows the writer's lack of ability is the laugh-out-loud, ridiculous way they try to insert exposition. In one scene in the beginning, the younger version of the main character, Sanjaka, speaks to his mother and she says something to the effect of, "It's been a year since your father died. We've sold this house and we're just renting it now." She might as well have said, "Your name is Sanjaka. You are a boy living in Indonesia and you might have superpowers." Another moment with hilariously unnatural exposition involves a hotshot young politician who inexplicably doesn't know that one of his colleagues is also the town's ruthless mafia boss, then has to be given a large chunk of backstory about him. How would someone this clueless ever get elected to a government position? Although they hint at his superpowers in one scene when he's a child, Sanjaka really begins to develop his superpowers after getting struck by lightning 46 minutes into a 2-hour movie. The writer here clearly is not sticking to your basic 3-act structure. It's not that you always have to do it, that includes genre pictures as well, but it's patently obvious that this movie would have been helped by having it. More examples of bad writing. About halfway into the movie, the main character harnesses some of his superpowers and beats up like 30 guys. After the fight, he tells his coworker that he can't fight, that he's just a regular guy. His coworker even agrees, jokingly asking if the 30 people he beat up were old ladies. But the weird part is, Sanjaka was fighting throughout the whole movie, even being taught to fight as a young boy. If the filmmaker forgot elements of his own story from previous scenes, well, that would back up the notion that this movie may not have had a script. More bad writing. There is a subplot about contaminated rice. A bunch of bad guys break into a rice factory and contaminate large bags of rice with a neon green serum that, get this, only affects the fetuses of pregnant women and makes those babies lose their quote-unquote morals, their abilities to discern right from wrong. And they actually state it in a similar way in the movie. I swear to God this is a subplot in the film. But then at the end of the movie, it's revealed to be a hoax created to get pregnant women to come out and get injected with a fake cure serum that will actually end up giving their unborn children birth defects. Why not skip a step and just put that serum in the freaking rice to begin with? New characters appear throughout the entire film, sometimes serving no purpose to the story. I mentioned that weird exposition moment with the hotshot young politician. It feels like he's being introduced here as a key character, but he's killed off with his entire family in the very next scene. At the 1 hour and 14-minute mark, a professional violinist appears out of nowhere. It turns out he's one of the mafia leader's henchmen. His violin case even has a blade pop out of it, total B-movie stuff. Similar to the hotshot young politician, he's gone in 2 scenes. He's not even defeated by the hero, he's randomly hit by a van while crossing the street. Pretty much every character in this movie is underdeveloped. Towards the end, there's a whole montage of the mafia leader's henchmen. I think there's about 10 characters or so that are all introduced at their day jobs. I think it was like a chef, a yoga instructor, etc. And they each get a call from the mafia leader as he's getting his team together to finally take down the hero once and for all. It was weird to show all of them at their day jobs and right in the middle of their work. I thought they were going to tie in these skills to like their supervillain powers or something, but they don't even really do that. And one of them is an obvious Gogo Yubari from Kill Bill ripoff, as she's wearing what looks like a schoolgirl skirt and has some weapon attached to a chain that she swings around. There is just clearly a lack of imagination here all around. In the last scene of the film, we see like a mummified head and one of the villains putting a single drop of a chemical on it. Then he puts the head back on its body and the thing magically comes back to life. It looks like some demonic supervillain is being introduced for the sequel, and then the movie just ends. Now, I have no problem with this ending on a cliffhanger, as I read this is a famous series of comic books in Indonesia. The problem with this scene is that the rules of fantasy in this movie are never established. I had no inkling that chemicals that bring back old mummies was possible in the universe of this film. A kid who has superpowers developed from lightning strikes, it's fantasy, but when you get into mummies coming back to life, this is just another genre altogether. There's also a character that appears in a handful of scenes that has a floating flame above his hand and is able to make characters fall asleep. Again, they never established the fantasy rules of this movie. This is clearly sci-fi fantasy on another level, not just gaining superpowers from lightning bolts. My final rating for Gundala is 1.5 stars. As of the making of this video, the Rotten Tomatoes percentage for Gundala is 100%. And although there were only 5 reviews, I don't even understand how there could be even one review recommending this film. The whole purpose of Rotten Tomatoes is for movie fans to get suggestions on what movies to watch based on the aggregation of all critics' reviews. Well, if the Rotten Tomatoes percentage ends up recommending films of this quality, then the whole purpose of the website is lost. I can only see the most diehard of martial arts movie fans enjoying this, and I'm sure even they would be hard-pressed to rave about it. Do yourself a favor and watch an old Jackie Chan movie instead.